Hey everyone, welcome to Area 616. Over the last couple of weeks and really months, things have not been looking great for Marvel's Netflix shows. So far we've had 2 cancellations within a week of each other, and radio silence on future installments, which has led many to wonder if Disney might be forcing these shows to end. When Iron Fist was cancelled, I got it. It's not a super popular show and it just wasn't worth all the money for Netflix to keep producing it. But Luke Cage is another story. Luke Cage was well received, especially Season 2. So this announcement was a huge shock to everyone, and brought a worry I've had for a while now up to the forefront. Are the Marvel Netflix shows ending? I've been thinking about this since last fall, around when Disney first announced their streaming service. But them canceling Luke Cage has made it real for me. The idea of all of these shows ending has never seemed more feasible than it is now. So today I wanted to go over whether or not I think these shows may truly be ending, and what these characters' individual futures could be should this happen. But obviously I'd like to take a moment to focus on Luke Cage specifically. I'm really disappointed to hear this news, as I really did think that Luke Cage was all but confirmed for Season 3. Season 2 was some of Marvel Television's best work, and left Luke in a really interesting place, and I'm sad that we may never see that followed up on. Unlike the Iron Fist cancellation, the article announcing this was much less hopeful about the future of the character. They never said whether or not Luke would continue to appear, making it clear that they were intending for Danny and Colleen to be in Luke Cage. So what could be next for these characters? The most obvious and popular option is that the 2 characters unite to form a Heroes for Hire series, something fans have been calling for a while now. I think that would actually be a great idea. It's something I'd love to see, and I think it's a real possibility. According to the article announcing this, Luke Cage's cancellation didn't have anything to do with the series' performance, but simply some complications that arose while trying to work out the episode count of all things. Apparently they wanted to bump it down from 13 to 10, and contractual complications from that, combined with some conflict between the writers and execs over the story, led to the series being cancelled, which, according to Deadline sources, all went down over about 48 hours. So yeah, there's no reason to believe Netflix wouldn't be willing to at least consider moving forward with Luke Cage and Iron Fist, but I'm not sure they will. It's easy for us to say that Netflix is cheap with these shows, and it's something we often say in regards to Iron Fist, but the reality is they really aren't. They're very expensive shows to film, and now that Netflix has quadrupled their amount of original content, it makes sense for them to want to start cutting down on the less popular shows. So they may simply not want to move forward with Heroes for Hire if it isn't as much of a guaranteed hit as Daredevil or even Jessica Jones would be. Also, both the Luke Cage showrunner and star, Mike Colter, have made very final-sounding tweets about the cancellation, so it really doesn't sound like they're planning to move forward with Heroes for Hire at all. Now, maybe Netflix would make an 8-episode Heroes for Hire miniseries, to at least wrap up their respective cliffhangers, but we'll just have to wait and see. So with that said, is it possible we could see this happen with the other Marvel series? The only ones left now are Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and The Punisher. Of the 3, I think The Punisher would be the most likely to get axed next, simply because it has stirred up so much controversy. And the first season just kind of came and went without much of a reaction. So I do very much believe that if Season 2 of The Punisher doesn't perform well, Netflix will cancel it as well. Now, based off of set photos, and what very little we know about The Punisher Season 2, it looks like it'll be going back to the character's roots, so it could be a major improvement. I hope I'm wrong, because I love Bernthal's performance and I'd love to see it continue for a while longer. Melissa Rosenberg, the showrunner of Jessica Jones, has announced she's leaving the show to pursue a big opportunity with Warner Brothers after Season 3. So with that as well, I think whether or not Netflix moves forward with Jessica Jones would depend on how Season 3 performs. Season 2, like The Punisher, didn't turn many heads despite the fact that Season 1 is one of Marvel's most critically acclaimed shows. The second season suffered from a lack of a strong central villain like Kilgrave, and ultimately dragged a lot more than Season 1 did. So it's a pretty big possibility that Jessica Jones is up for cancellation as well, unless Season 3 returns to the same level of quality that the first one had. And even then, Netflix will have to go through the trouble of finding a new showrunner for the series, so it'll depend on whether or not they think it's worth it at the time. But the real test of these shows' fates comes down to Daredevil. Let's be real here for a second. Daredevil is the only one of these shows that is uniformly loved by pretty much everyone who watches it. The critics love it, the fans love it, and it's even won a fair share of awards. Not only that, it's an actual big success for Netflix themselves. It's a very popular series and has performed well for Netflix over the years. Netflix never releases viewership info for their series, but from what we've heard, Daredevil is one of their top shows, something that definitely reflects in their marketing for Season 3. On top of this, Season 3 was incredibly well received, with pretty much everyone calling it the best superhero TV show ever made. So, unlike all of the other shows, Netflix has every reason to renew Daredevil. It's popular and successful, so if Netflix cancels Daredevil, that's when we'll know we're in trouble. So let's say Netflix does cancel Daredevil, The Punisher, and Jessica Jones. They don't greenlight a Heroes for Hire series. What then? Is there any hope for these characters beyond Netflix? Maybe so. Really, there are 3 viable platforms that could pick up these shows after cancellation. The first is Disney Play, but that's less likely due to Disney's desire to keep the service family friendly. I could see them cutting characters like Iron Fist or really even Daredevil down to a hard TV-14, and it could probably still work, but that's not necessarily the case for Jessica Jones and The Punisher. So the best option for them now, and really the most tangible one at the moment, is Hulu. Now I doubt Hulu would want to pick up 5 shows all at once. That's a big commitment, especially if some of them aren't as popular as others. But I could see them picking up the more popular series like Daredevil, Jessica Jones. Next year, after the Disney Fox deal is through, Disney will own a huge share in Hulu. So if they wanted to move these shows there, they absolutely could, assuming Netflix cancels them and allows Disney to do so. So maybe this is the end game. Maybe this is all Disney's elaborate plot to get their shows on networks they own. Now that's not likely. Everything still points to these shows being under Netflix's control, which is a good thing. If it's in Disney's control, they might cancel all of them without a second thought. But Netflix will only cancel the ones that aren't performing well. The third option is one that is currently not on the table necessarily, but it is a possibility. A Marvel streaming service. As I'm sure you all know, this month DC Universe was launched. It's a streaming service for all things DC, a one-stop place where you can watch and read any and all movies, TV shows, animated series, and even comics produced by DC and Warner Brothers. As you've probably gathered from my range of topics, I'm not into DC much at all, but I've got to admit, I love the idea of this streaming service. A place like that for Marvel where I could watch any Marvel movie or TV show and read the latest comics would be basically heaven on earth for any fan of Marvel. I mean, sure, it would be kind of copying DC, yes, but I think the reward would be worth swallowing your pride for a bit. With that said, there's no telling if Disney would be interested in this kind of thing at all. They might want to keep all of their Marvel stuff on only Disney Play, but a streaming service would give them a new home for more R-rated content, and possibly a new place for Daredevil and the other Defenders to be, should Netflix cancel them. Sure, this is just pure speculation, but it's a fun idea. There's no telling if Disney would deem the costs and work for this to be worth it, and they might not want to start more than one streaming service to compete with their own, but it's just an idea that's going around. But at the end of the day, the question still remains. Is the era of the Marvel Netflix shows over already? Based on what we've seen, I wouldn't go that far necessarily, but I do believe we're to the point where Netflix is no longer obligated to make a certain number of shows from Marvel. So from now on, they will be judged based on their actual performance. I don't necessarily believe that Disney is behind all of this. That just sounds like a tinfoil hat kind of thing to me. The fact of the matter is, yes, Disney owns Marvel, but these are still Netflix originals. They will always be on Netflix whether they're canceled or not. And at the moment, there's no reason Netflix, or really even Disney for that matter, would want them to end. The fact of the matter is, it's pretty much always going to come down to one thing: money. These shows make Netflix and Disney money, and as long as they continue to do so, they'll probably stick around. However, with that said, I wouldn't be too surprised if this time next year, Daredevil's the only one left standing. But what do you guys think? Do you think Netflix will keep The Punisher and Jessica Jones around? And how safe do you think Daredevil is? If they cancel all of this, where and how could you see the characters continue? Let me know all your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Each step I left behind, each road you know is mine. Walking